I just got bullied by a fly. I tried recording this video, this fly just attacked me in the face. I don't remember where I started and where I left off on the last recording, so we're gonna run this one back. Welcome to another Law Venture video. We're now international. I am in Madrid. Today is my first full day in Madrid, and I've been doing a lot of walking today, frankly. It's been too much walking. I have not been pacing myself. I'm jet lagged, a little delirious. I'm powered by matcha and gelato. And here we are. I'm taking a break, and I decided while taking a break, what better thing to do than record a Law Venture video. There's a question that's come up over the years that I don't think I formally have answered with a particular video, and that question is, do grades really matter for the future lawyer? And I have a typical lawyer response. It really is, it depends. But I'm gonna go on a limb here and say, not really. And I'm gonna use myself as an anecdotal example. Let me start by saying this. I'll get this out of the way. Having good grades makes life a lot easier. What I mean by this is that if you have good grades, then you're gonna have more opportunities and more doors are gonna be open to you. That also includes, hopefully, better scholarship opportunities as well. And in the long run, that's valuable. If you can get a scholarship, then that can not only save you a lot of money, but that can also start the compounding of your personal wealth as well much more quickly. If you're putting your early salary, once you are a licensed lawyer, towards investments, towards your future, and you allow that to grow, the sooner you allow that to grow, the more you're gonna really start feeling free and you're gonna start seeing your hard work pay off. Contrast that with not having good grades, going to law school, going massively in debt because of student loans, and then you're having to handicap your growth as a result because your extra money that could be invested when you're 24, 25, 26, that most likely would be going towards student loans. Depending on the interest rate, you may want to be a little bit more aggressive than investing and just putting the bare minimum in. So that's what I mean by easier. Life is just easier whenever you have good grades. So I'm an advocate for trying to do the best you can in order to get the best grades you can. Practically speaking, I was a terrible student, if I'm being totally honest. And it wasn't something that I was trying to do in a rebellious nature, but when I look back, I just, a lot of wasted potential, if I'm being honest with you. So context-wise, I wasn't a struggling student. I was a terrible student. There's a distinction. Let me make that distinction. First things first, in high school, and even in junior high, I was in all accelerated AP classes. I was, I think a year or two ahead in math, but I did not go all in on studying and to try and get the best grades possible. I was balancing a lot in high school. I had my own video editing business, which was doing really, really well, that I went all in on. And then after the video editing season would go down, and then I would coach kids basketball. I was also playing basketball. I had internships. I was doing a lot of different things that I was actually really passionate about. And what I was least passionate about were these basic courses that you take in high school. And I didn't really enjoy it. And if I'm not passionate about it, then I'm not gonna go all in with my focus. And as a result, the bottom rung priority for me were those classes, being prepared and getting good grades. And I'm pretty confident that I graduated not even in the top 25% of my class. And keeping in mind, in Texas, at least at the time, I don't know if this is still the case, if you graduated in the top 10% of your class, you could go to basically any Texas public school that you want. I didn't have that luxury. And so I ended up having to go to the University of Texas's sister school, mouthful to say, in San Antonio. So UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio. And while I was there, they call it the CAP program, or at least they did there. It was as long as you maintain a 3.2 GPA your freshman year in San Antonio or any of the sister schools, you were guaranteed admission into UT Austin. This is, the game plan. Okay, I just gotta maintain a 3.2. Doesn't really seem that difficult, so let's start the college talk. Yeah, I barely got in. My grades that freshman year, in order to get to 3.2, was exactly a 3.2. And I'm pretty sure, because it was so exact, that I was probably one question away of being below a 3.2. And there was one final exam where if there wasn't a curve up in my favor, I probably wouldn't have been able to be on that same trajectory of going to the University of Texas in Austin, but was able to lock in and get that 3.2. For those watching and who are really like type A for law school, you could probably get a sense of like 3.2 freshman year isn't that great if I'm trying to get into law school A, B, and C. Yeah, it didn't help me. So now I'm at UT, I'm in Austin, and it was brutal. I just couldn't find my thing. And what was kind of disheartening that first year as a sophomore at UT was not only could I not find my thing, but it's like I'm doing all these things I don't like. And it's just like I'm having to spend extra time to learn material that doesn't really register with me, that it's just not clicking as easily as it would if I was passionate about it. Eventually, just by pure luck, I ended up taking a class called Philosophy Contemporary Moral Problems. It just, at this point, I literally had nothing to lose on trying to find a major that I was passionate in. And at the time, I was trying to get into UT's business school, so all my classes were like business-oriented classes, and those included like all the calculuses, all the macro economics, and then I took this contemporary moral problems class, and that led to me really enjoying it. It was a topic that I really gravitated towards, and I was like, you know what, screw business, I'm going to major in philosophy because this was so enjoyable. I didn't do particularly well in that class. I think I got a B, but it was something that I was excited to go attend, and it actually gave me like more energy as a student to start trying to get more focused and dialed in. Now my family, whenever they found out that I was no longer trying to major in business and was going to major in philosophy, they had some words, but we got through it. It was either I was going to go to the unemployment line or I was going to go to law school, and at that point it was decided I was locked in. So now I'm majoring in philosophy. Grades freshman year, barely a 3.2. The basics, struggling on all those. And then I switched majors sophomore or junior year. I think it was sophomore year. This is when I decided and elected philosophy. The problem I ran into was that I had gone so hardcore on the business classes to get into business school, I didn't get to have any fun electives because I looked like a psycho, because my electives, meaning I didn't have to actually take these classes, were macroeconomics, Cal 1, Cal 2. I didn't get to take archery in order to get like an easy A to help overinflate my GPA. So there was no overinflating. There was just me trying to prioritize finding my path. And so when I started taking these philosophy classes, I struggled, but in a different way. I really enjoyed them. I found them really entertaining and thought-provoking, and it was a type of discussion I'd never had at any stage in my life ever, that I really liked. I found it so refreshing. The problem was nobody at that point in my life leading up to it had ever spoken the language that's related to like philosophy. I don't know how to like eloquently say this. Philosophy is another language. Like you start talking about the categorical imperative, it's just like I've never said those words outside of a philosophy context, and it was just hearing these discussions, hearing the professor talk about these philosophical concepts. I couldn't even understand the language initially, And so I was spending so much time just trying to understand what was a foreign language to me before even trying to understand the concepts in general. And I mean, I remember there was a metaphysics class that I took, and I think it was a required class. Till this day, I don't even know what the class was about. I was just learning words to put on paper without even knowing what the words were. And that probably took a semester or two in order to finally get the language down, to start basically to innately translate it in my mind and start having productive conversations, but more importantly, understanding what these conversations were about. Then my GPA finally, maybe late junior year, started to swing the other way. It's like, okay, I'm passionate about this, I'm liking this, and my grades were reflective of that. Like, I started getting way more A's, and I wasn't struggling to even have the motivation to go to class because it was a topic I enjoyed. It was a major I chose. It was a path I was down. And then that led to me around this time starting to prepare for the LSAT. And spoiler alert, the first time I took the LSAT, bombed it. It was very humbling. I self-studied, I should say, and I didn't do a good job preparing for the actual game day. What I ended up doing was studying each section in isolation, taking a break, next section, taking a break. But then whenever I was actually taking the exam, it was like, oh my goodness, I am mentally wiped after some point, and it was just downhill. And I didn't have the mental stamina that I probably should have had that first time around. So that shook my confidence. It's like, look, my GPA is not great. I just bombed the LSAT. I need to go back in and try and make up for both with a better LSAT. So I hired a tutor, spent a pretty penny on that, and just went all in. Like, he basically became my best friend. Like, I talked to him every day. I talked to other people much less, and in between classes, I was LSAT prepping. In fact, there were a couple times he walked in and I beat him to his office, and I was just sleeping on a bench outside of his office. He's like, "Are you taking care of yourself?" First time anybody's ever asked me that in college. And I was like, "I'm trying, man. I'm trying." So anyways, got a much better LSAT score the second time around. That was, thank goodness. I went to law school, and I want to say that it was a breeze, that everything came so easy. That's not the case. Yeah, the romanticized, I'm going to go into law school, everyone's going to think that I'm him, right? Like, I'm going to just knock it out of the park. This is going to be an obvious, like, he's meant to be a great lawyer scenario. That didn't play out that way. I had a very similar experience to changing my major to philosophy. I went into that first semester as a law student, and I just struggled to understand the language. They're speaking English, but it's not English. And understanding these very abstract concepts in law, when you're just like, I don't even know what these words are. And that took some getting used to. In fact, it took at least a semester, because my first semester in law school, straight C's. It was my first time really getting a sense of gunners in law school. And for those that don't know, a gunner in law school is something you never want to be. It's like the person who is a know-it-all and wants everybody to know they're a know-it-all, and they're overly prepared, they're always volunteering, and basically the sense you get from them is that law school is everything. It's the end-all be-all, this is all they're focused on. Between gunners and the masochistic academics, I'll say, to where they will show up the next morning, they look dead tired, and they'll brag to you about how little they ate or how poorly they ate, how horrible all aspects of life are because they're doing it for the grades, and it's like a badge of honor. I quickly realized, yeah, that's just not going to be me. I'm gonna keep spending time working out. I'm gonna keep spending time getting to know people beyond the law students. I'm gonna keep trying to connect and basically have balance, which I don't say this as a negative, but it put me at a disadvantage of sorts. Like, you either are or you will meet the people in law school that balance is not a thing. And they either enjoy that or it's just a temporary expense that they're just going to pay for 3 years. And that's just not a price point that works for me. It never has. Like, if you know, if I feel good, I am just going to be happier, and there's more fulfillment in that. And so I realized pretty quickly, because the straight C's that I got that first semester, it's all on a graded curve, and it's just like, part of me recognizes that it's hard to keep up with the people who are just trying to be good at everything at the expense of everything else, and I didn't want to do that. And that's just a me thing. If you have different priorities, you know, just beware. You know, just if you're not in balance, then it can add up over time. Compounding can be a really good thing, or it can be a really bad thing, and it can get away from you. Well, I ended up getting an internship for a judge my, I guess, first law school summer. And I asked the judge after I got the internship, I was like, man, how many people did you interview? Just you. I was like, oh, because the interview went so well? Nobody else applied. And I was like, what? Nobody else applied? Honestly, I wish he would have just lied to me. But that judicial internship, because I was interning not only for him, but the judge down the hall and getting exposure to other judges in other courtrooms, I don't know where I'd be without that judicial internship. It showed me different areas of law. It showed me both sides of the bar on each particular area of law. It showed me behind the scenes, obviously from like the judge's side. I got to hang out with the prosecutors. I got to, you know, meet plaintiff's lawyers. And whenever you're the judge's intern, everyone wants to meet you too. And that helped all the abstract language stuff that I was struggling understanding in the first year, and starting to grasp through the concrete aspect of mock trial, moot court, and negotiations. Everything just started clicking. And it's like, okay, like I think I understand this. So I took all that experience, that knowledge gained, and then took it to the second year of law school. And then at this point, I'm starting to pick my classes that I'm passionate in. And at that point, it's like grades are going up. You could tell the classes that are going to, that I'm gravitating towards, that are ultimately going to play a factor into my career. And those I was locked in. But maybe more critically, once I was able to start picking my own classes, I could avoid the classes that I wasn't passionate about, the ones that were really taking a lot of my focus for me to just survive. Then bar exam, passed the bar, and I start working as a plaintiff's lawyer doing personal injury work. I also very quickly had an idea for a class action that I ran by my boss that he was very excited about. And he's like, Jarrett, I don't know anything about class actions. See what you can learn about it. And when you really think about everything that you're doing in law school, where you're balancing all these plates that you're spinning, and there's all these courses and all these associations, just focusing on personal injury and like class action work is just so narrow. And I felt like my focus became like locked in on very, very little things that I could finally go deep on. And that's ultimately my point. I've given you my entire backstory to really discredit myself as a lawyer. But I want your takeaway, or the takeaway for you to have, to be, okay, here's an example of someone who didn't get 4.0s throughout his entire education, who didn't have a full ride to anywhere, and who did pretty good on the LSAT. I passed the bar comfortably, but there was nothing that had a wow factor on my resume. And ultimately, when I started my own law firm, I had great experience. I kept chasing experience, and that led to me being on the fast track of the successful path that I've been on. Because you can have 5 years of experience. That's not the same 5 years of experience that somebody who's in the trenches is going to have. Not all years of experience are created equal, and so it's that time after all the grades are basically irrelevant, where I think you can really start separating yourself, where you can really start educating yourself on ways to deepen what you're good at, and then that's when you start seeing outsized results. Ultimately, I think that's the path, is to find the passion, go deep on it, and enjoy it, because that's what you're passionate about. All right, that's all I got on this video. I'm gonna go back to exploring Madrid. I have my camera here, and I'm about to snap away. If you wanna see the journey, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. It's at Jarrett Stone Law. I'll put a link in the description.